Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something pretty intense, a speculative look at what a military conflict with Iran might look like, based on an analysis from Blaze TV.
So, how does this whole thing kick off? Well, according to the source, it's not a slow burn. The world basically wakes up one Saturday morning to the news a massive military operation against Iran is already happening.
And the official word comes straight from the top. The president gets on the air and lays it out. We have launched an attack and we struck 500+ targets across Iran, focusing on things like missile sites and command centers.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at that initial Saturday strike. Then we'll get into the arsenal they've unleashed. After that, we'll talk about the strategy here, overwhelm and awe. We'll also touch on the controversy and credibility issues that were raised. And finally, we'll look at the big question, what happens next?
Okay, so let's get right into it. That first wave of attacks. According to this analysis, the goal was simple but huge. Cripple the regime's ability to do anything, to function, to retaliate right from the get-go.
And these weren't just random strikes. No, the source describes a really coordinated first wave. We're talking hits on the Supreme Leader's compound, command and control centers, and key locations for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The whole shebang.
And here's where it gets really specific. According to the source, this one moment perfectly sums up their decapitation strategy. They talk about a single, incredibly precise strike that supposedly took out the Ayatollah and 40 other senior leaders, all while they were in a meeting. The claim is that this was all based on CIA intel, and that Israel actually carried out the strike.
All right, so that's the shock and awe of the initial strike, but now let's zoom out and look at the sheer scale of this thing. The source is really clear on this point. This is no small skirmish. We're talking about an absolutely immense deployment of military power.
And to put that into perspective for you, the speakers actually compare the air and naval power to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. I mean, that's massive. But here's the key difference they highlight. The initial plan, at least, is to do all this without a major ground invasion.
But, no ground invasion doesn't mean zero boots on the ground. The analysis is pretty sure that elite special forces are already operating inside Iran, doing these very specific, supercritical missions, things like securing nuclear material and literally painting targets for the airstrikes.
Okay, so this next part is really interesting. It gets into the core philosophy that the source says is driving this whole thing. And spoiler alert, it is not about having a fair fight.
And to really hammer this point home, the speakers use this incredibly powerful and honestly devastating analogy. They talk about something called a fuel air bomb. They describe how it works. It disperses a cloud of fuel and then ignites it, creating this massive fireball that literally sucks the oxygen out of the air. It's terrifying, but they're using it as a metaphor for the psychological impact they want this attack to have.
So what's the takeaway here? The crucial point is that this strategy is all about total, completely lopsided dominance. The goal isn't just to win, it's to win so fast and so decisively that it scares off any future aggression. The idea is to create peace through just overwhelming strength.
And the source actually breaks this down into a two-phase plan. Phase 1, purely military. The goal is to get total air superiority, complete control of the skies in just 1 or 2 weeks. And Phase 2? Well, that's political. The idea is that the military action creates a vacuum, an opening, for the Iranian people themselves to rise up and decide what comes next.
Now, obviously, you can't have an operation on this scale without massive controversy, and the analysis dives right into that, confronting the inevitable human cost, and then it pivots to what it presents as the real central question here.
The speakers tackle a really harrowing report head-on, the bombing of a primary school. They lay out the accusation, which is that it's a war crime, but then they present their rebuttal, that it was a tragic, terrible accident in a really strategic military zone, and they argue that intentionally targeting kids isn't just morally unthinkable, it would make no strategic sense either.
And they use this really difficult incident to pivot the whole conversation. The point they're making is that in the fog of war, with all the chaos and bad information flying around, the ultimate question for the public isn't about any one single event. It comes down to one thing: do you trust the person in charge who's making these calls? And right on cue, the source then makes its case for that trust. The argument they present is that this particular president isn't a forever war kind of leader. They claim he has a track record of using the military in a very specific way, quickly, deadly, effectively, and crucially, with a clear plan to get out. Okay, so the initial attack is over, the strategy is laid out, so now what? The analysis then turns to the future.
I mean, what are the potential consequences, the ripple effects of something this huge? And the source points to a few pretty big, unpredictable outcomes. You've got the risk of radicals fleeing Iran and destabilizing neighboring countries. You've got the immediate danger to Iranian civilians who've been warned to just stay inside. And then there's the geopolitical shockwave when the world sees that all those Russian and Chinese air defense systems in Iran just completely failed.
And this is where the whole analysis wraps up, with this final piece of advice from the source. They say, look, your principles have to be locked in. Don't budge on those. But your support for a specific action, that doesn't have to be. You have to be flexible, ready to adapt based on what's actually happening on the ground. It's really a call for a kind of principled pragmatism when you're staring into a really uncertain future.